because, that line in there just gets me every time. It says, all my life you have been faithful. And I was just singing it, we sang it Sunday, and then I was just singing it then, and I thought, that is really hard for some of us to sing. And that is really hard for you to sing. And it's really hard for me to sing. Because, there are moments where you're like, how could this be the good plan, And so I just wanted to say that to all of you, that if you're not there yet and you're like, I don't want to sing that line. That feels really hard. All my life you have been faithful. Well, what about that time? And what about that time? And but it's all led you to this moment, where you can lay that down. And even Sunday when I was singing it, I just thought, man, I can sing that because I wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened, Like, I wouldn't be the mom that I am, which is not the mom that I want to be a lot of days. I want to be a better mom, but, I wouldn't be the friend. I wouldn't be the wife. I wouldn't be so many of the things that I am today because he was faithful in that moment, whether I knew it or not. And so if that's hard for you to sing tonight, I really, really would love myself to pray with you because I think that line, all my life you have been faithful and all my life you have been good, so good to me. When you can sing that, that's when you're free. That's when you're free. And so if you're like, can't sing that yet, there's probably forgiveness. There's probably a lie. There's something, that you're believing that's not his best for you. And so I would love to personally pray for you. And I just want to say to Rachel, she's going to share her story tonight. And if anybody has permission to not believe that line, it's her. And yet she's here declaring his goodness. She flew from LA to be here tonight. And it's just an honor that you're here, and I love her. She leads Be Still in LA, which how fun is that? I mean, like, never in a million years did we ever think we'd have a Be Still in LA. But
me either. I definitely didn't think I'd be leading us.
But just a little backstory. Karen, almost 2 months, she's probably watching on Facebook. Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 months before we ended up going out to LA, for Be Still, Karen had seen, in her mind's eye, she had seen like the back of a Delta seat and the little map with a plane going from Georgia all the way across to California. And she told me, and I was like, whatever, we don't have any plans to go out there. Like, okay, maybe we're supposed to go to Bethel and listen to him worship or something. And so anyway, I was like, that would be fun. I'd love to take a trip. And sure enough, 2 months later, there we are, sitting on that Delta plane, flying across the country, because that is who God is. We never would have dreamed. I mean, never in a million years would we have dreamed that she would have been sitting here, and it was because Rachel, we're like Rachel Triple over here, but this Rachel had a night in, had a Be Still night that she hosted that this Rachel came to. She's going to talk about that. But anyway, just in a million years, you just never know. You never know what God is going to do in your life. I mean, I tell you what, you open yourself up to stop believing lies about yourself, and he will make some dreams come true. Yes. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to, I just wanted to say that.
And while you never know, I kind of assumed I was going to cry, so I brought tissues, but I didn't expect to cry before I even told my story, so thank you. That was awesome. Let's get it started. I know not to wear mascara on the bottom lashes. Let's hope at least the top lashes can help. Thank you. I got a whole pregnancy circle over here too, so this is awesome. Well, hi everyone. Nice to meet y'all. My name's Rachel. And before you shame on me too much, because I live in LA, I actually grew up in Georgia, so I'm still your people. So that's fun. So I was super nervous. I'm going to go ahead and just out myself about sharing this because for a million reasons. I speak a lot. I work in entertainment and fashion, so I do the whole namaste stuff and red carpets and things, but it's way different to be vulnerable and to admit when you've felt severe shame. So I'm going to go ahead and start off and just let you know that my story prior to God's amazing hand in it has felt covered in shame. So I'm just going to go ahead and out the elephant in the room because I'm going to fill some moments probably. So, let's just go there. But what's really special is today Mallory and I were having lunch, and she said something so profound. I was like, you need to say this on stage somewhere. And she's like, you should say it. I'm like, I'm not still in it. Well, here I am still in it. And she said, there's something about sharing, like finding your identity in your story versus sharing your story out of your identity. And I was like, whoa, I was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, oh, hold on, like, let's rewind that. And what it really stopped me in my tracks with was that thought. I think we can all relate. I don't know who here has been through severe trauma or trauma, and all trauma is severe, right? But it's very easy to find your identity in your story if that's what you think your life is actually about. But when you flip it around and you find your identity in God and you actually know that, and you're not saying it because it's the thing they say in church, it's actually because it's like the life support that you need. It's like the blood going through your veins, because it's the only thing that keeps you out of suicide, out of depression, out of complete desolation. Then you actually know who you are, and it doesn't matter what your story is. So in my moments of flesh, when I will feel those moments, I know that that's not who I am. And I encourage a lot of you today, I'm going to share something that could be triggering, could be kind of dark, but the reason why it's so important, I think, is, and important for each of you, and I love that we did open mic night, the non-bar version, because it's really important to take those moments and to be bold, right? Because it's a little nerve-wracking to speak up, because those are those moments that we actually get to share something and highlight something God's done. So I really struggled a little bit when I was thinking about how I was going to share my story, because I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, my road to healing has not been chronological order, and this happened and that was so hard, and then I got through it and it was I overcame, and it was so amazing. My life has been more like an onion. It's I couldn't face some of the darkest things that had happened to me starting when I was 5 years old, because it was too much for me to look at, frankly. And so the way that it happened was how a lot of people probably experience therapy, because my journey has included a lot of that, which was basically going to therapy and be like, well, my husband's really pissing me off today, and then my coworker did this, and you're starting to unravel these little pieces, and therapists always are like, well, how did you grow up? Well, let's stay focused right now. This is what happened to me. And little by little, inch by inch, you start to understand who you are as a result, right, of what you've been through, which is why we start to think that that's our identity. But then we realize that we're actually making these choices based on things we've been through. So I'm going to start with how I experienced it, right? So I didn't remember my childhood until a year ago, prior to the age of 13. All I knew was that it was a black hole. There was a lot of traumatic abuse, and I couldn't have a relationship with my parents and my sisters without recreating them in my mind. So that's what I did. I painted the picture of the father who was 6'5" and nice and protective and loved me and cared for me, and the mother who nurtured me and was there for me and cared when I was sick, and the sisters who were not bullies. They were awesome, and they cared about me, and we were awesome, and I was the baby, and it was so fun, and I didn't grow up in a trailer park, and no one needed to know any of that. So I painted this whole picture, and I just kind of started living my life when I was 13. The problem with that is that I actually wasn't really living my life, because I was just dealing with severe depression, and I didn't really know what that was, but I was homeschooled and I didn't have any friends. So in a span of 3 months, right around my 13th birthday, my dad and both my sisters moved away. One sister ran away from home, the other one moved to Miami, and my dad moved out for the final time. And there have been a lot of affairs and things like that, but my dad was a pastor of a church, which made it pretty awkward and confusing, obviously. But, again, that didn't fit the picture perfect life that I really wanted to put out into the world, so I just didn't want to look at that. So I kind of just pushed my past behind me, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm still doing my high school, but there's no one here. My mom had to go back to work for the first time in my whole life. So it was just me and myself at the house, and I didn't know what to do with myself, so I would just lay in the bed and watch the clock tick by. And to me, that was my normal, you know, because I didn't know what else to do. And then it was like just way too brutal. So then I begged my mom to let me get a job, and she agreed. And she introduced me to a guy named Joe, and I started working for him at 13. Wasn't really legal, and he couldn't really afford me, so I'd clock out and work all day and try to prove my worth through work. I knew I didn't want to be a trailer park girl forever, and I knew that I wanted to make something of my life, so I figured I can't afford college. My parents told me I was never going to go, so then let me just work my butt off, and I'll do this through a job. Unfortunately, my first boss was a molester, and that began like a 2-year saga that happened in the course of work, which was really challenging, right? But I had gotten really good at blocking stuff out, so I thought that this is a lot, guys. Dumping on you. You're like, I didn't know this was therapy night, okay? Sorry. But I got really good at kind of just blocking things out, you know? And also, in a way, it was attention, right? It was like someone playing this male type father role for me, and I didn't know why I was even okay with it, but you know, there was a part of me that he was like 30 years old. It was really messed up, and I can't help but wonder where my mom was, because like, you know, he's dropping me off at my house. Like, it's weird, you know? But I just kept on pushing through and whatever. And then a couple years later, I got my first corporate job, kind of just put that behind me and started to like collect accolades. I was like, if I can just be really successful, like we'll be really cool, everything will keep growing, you know? And all along the way, it was really interesting because my relationship with God was as quiet as it's kind of been so far in my story, right? I knew he was there, and I knew he was real. And even though I'd had a lot of hypocrisy in my life, I didn't really doubt that he was legitimate, but I also didn't understand the God that we're all talking about here, you know? Like, the God that I knew was like this really aggressive, like, judger who obviously, like, me and my mess and my childhood and all the things was just too much. So I wasn't really trying to have a relationship with him yet. I was like, you know what, let me just get married and get my life together one day, and then we'll come back and we'll have a great life, and you're gonna love me, I'm gonna look real pretty. But right now, I'm a little bit of a hot mess. Less of the hot, more of the mess. So I'm just gonna keep on doing life, and like, you know, we'll be cool. So I realized that I kind of need therapy around this point. So I began investing in a lot of therapists, new cars and houses. I spent a lot of money in therapy. And it's very good for you, so I highly recommend it if necessary. But it wasn't doing it for me. You know what I mean? It was like, it was all being so attached to this mask that I had been creating since I was 13, right? Because again, I don't really remember most of my childhood. I know it's a mess, and I know it doesn't relate with things that I want to be associated with. So little by little, I was just kind of painting this mask, and it was just getting prettier. Now I've worked at a corporate job when I was 17, and now I've gone here, and then suddenly my sister is a famous actress, and so I'm going to move to LA and start, you know, working with her, which was really fun. And I highly recommend everyone work for your older sister. Do it today. So I like move cross country with like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Like, this is great. This is all helping my mask. It's getting me farther and farther from my story, and we're just very excited about this. So I get there, and of course, everywhere you go, there you are. So that sucks if you don't like who you are. So I was literally like in LA, like my first week there, like walking the People's Choice Awards carpet, feeling like the smallest person who ever was. Found myself on the cover of a National Enquirer magazine. They thought I was gay with my sister because they had no idea who I was. And I just appeared in all of these tabloids, and it was like, I literally was at Ralph's, which is like their weird version of Kroger. And I saw a photo of myself, and I was like, that's so weird. And then I was like, wait, what am I staring at? It was like the weirdest thing ever, you know? And it was the beginning of like going to these like really crazy A-lister events and just being like, I love you, Jessica Simpson, but like, I have no idea who let me here. And the bigger my mask got, the better my mask looked to everybody else, and the higher my high heels were, the more I fell apart on the inside, and the darker I became, because I felt deeper and deeper into this this self that said you're not good enough and you don't matter and you cannot share who you really are with the world. So don't do that. Just keep on building this mask. And so fast forward a couple years, I started to get to this point with LA and everything where I was just like, this is just not for me. Like, I just can't do this. So moved away. I started my first company, kept on building those accolades. And there was this point when I couldn't hold the mask together anymore. Okay, so I had met my husband, Rick, and one of his companies that he was working with, they got acquired, and so we had to move to Boulder for like 8 months. And I went there and I knew no one, and it was very cold, and I don't like cold. I like high heels, and you can't really wear them as much in the cold, so it was very challenging for my wardrobe. And all of my jackets are like faux warm, like this is not really warm, but like in Colorado you actually need real warm, ugly clothes. So it was very difficult for me to balance all of this. So here I am in this town, my fashion is really lacking, I'm alone, and we had left a car in LA because we were flying back so much, so I didn't even have a car, and so my husband would be gone at work, and I was like, I had no idea what to do. And it was our first year of marriage, and I was being my best self, so a couple months into that, I remember going to a dinner with his partner, and he had asked, like, hey, what's your story, you know? And I was like, well, you know, my parents were pretty abusive and whatever, that was fun, but whatever, I'm fine, don't worry about me, I'm doing great. And I just, like, told him my whole story, but, like, there was something about, like, the sincerity and how they asked me and how they listened to me that, like, I knew that they saw through my BS. And I knew that they saw through all the things that I was so proud to talk about, and they actually saw me. And that was a terrifying thought because I didn't want to be seen at all. And, I remember leaving there and just having like this eerie feeling inside that I wasn't familiar with. And it was the exposure and vulnerability of actually sharing my story, but not sharing it with like a purple cute fuchsia jacket. It was like I wasn't ready for it, and I wasn't in a place where I wanted to share it. And so it started this tailspin for me. Where I just was done. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm actually tired of white knuckling life. I'm tired of trying to hold it all together. I'm so sick and tired of like trying to prove to everybody that I matter enough to come to the table. Like that, like I'm not this trailer trash little girl who was totally forgotten, who was homeschooled with no friends, but barely homeschooled, and like felt so lacking on so many. I was just tired of it, and I didn't want to like pretend anymore like I was okay, because I wasn't, and it was just getting old. So I walked into the kitchen, and I didn't even like, I've never been into drugs or alcohol, so I really didn't have anything, but I grabbed like a pile of pills that I found, and I sat down in a closet all by myself in the house, and I just poured them out of my hand, and I was so angry at God, because I was like, you know I'm not supposed to kill myself, because I know it's not the plan that you tell us gets us into heaven. It's not like a get there faster ride. So I don't want to do this, but I don't want to not do this anymore. I'm tired of every single day being an operating depressed person and being so freaking good at it. I was so good at it. No one saw me coming. I could have fooled the best of them. And I was sick of it. So I just held those pills in my hand, and I was like, I'm just tired and I'm done. And then I hear this door open, and my husband had just had this feeling that he needed to come home. And he walked in the house, and it was like he knew exactly where I was. And he came right to that closet. And there he was, seeing me in my mess. And I was just like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. Like, I was so tired. And he's like, it's okay, baby. It's okay, you know? And then we got through that moment, and then about a day or two later, we went to church. It seemed like the right place for me to be. And I went to church, and I'd always been the altar girl. Like as soon as they opened the altar, I'm like, feline, first in line, what's that? Who's the best one here? Yeah. And the tears were coming, and this time they wouldn't stop. And everyone left. This was a massive congregation. Every person left, and I was still crying. And I was aware of the fact that my mask was completely gone, but I actually couldn't pull it back together. And Rick said that his partner, Scott, who we had actually just had that dinner with where I felt so exposed, wanted to see us that day and wanted to do a lunch with us, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. I'm ready for company. Bring it on. So we get in the car, and we start driving over there. And my husband's like, would you like to go to an intensive? You know, like, at this point, he's like, something's seriously wrong with this girl. I need to give her to the authorities. Someone needs to handle her. So I was like, yeah, that sounds, I'm thinking it's like you go to therapy like 3 times a week or something. So we drive over to their house. I have no idea that an intensive is a 30-day residential treatment that's actually $30,000. And let's laugh when we think about what was in my account. It was not that. And we get to their house and we sit down with them and they're like, how are you doing? And I was like, not really good, but by now I was like trying to put it together. And I was like, but I've decided that I want to do an intensive. And you know what they said to me? They haven't talked to Rick or I. They said, I was hoping you would say that because we would like to sponsor you. This is within an hour of me saying I want to go. I have no idea where I'm even going, but here these people are offering to write a check, and he knows because unbeknown to me at the time, he's actually gone through a treatment like this. So within a month, I'm in Chicago in a residential treatment, and that was the beginning of things uncracking for me because it was the first time I actually got the help that I really started to need. And it was a couple years later that coming up to last year in August, after I kind of got things shaken out, like a little shaken out, you know what I mean? I released enough of that pressure and enough of that darkness where I felt like I was actually having a more real life. Like I was being real about the fact that I had a mask on. I was comfortable with sharing my story and the fact that, you know, yeah, I was a mess. What's up? Who's not? You know what I mean? I started to get much more comfortable with that message, but there was always something that didn't fit. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, and there was like this big missing piece, and I knew that. But I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how easy it was to actually surrender it. And I remember last August, my husband and I were having some marital challenges, and so we went to an intensive for 2 days. And on day 1, some weird stuff was happening with my sisters that I was kind of privy to, but I didn't hear about. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was happening. Honestly, I knew it in my spirit, and then I heard through the grapevine, like, oh, you know, Annalyn's not doing very well. So I was like, okay, like, you know, but we weren't speaking at the time. And so I was like, okay, I just like started praying for her, you know, like not like really praying, but like be blessed, you know what I mean? So, I'll be honest, I wasn't like that holy. So I went into treatment, not having talked to anyone, having no clue what's going on. And I sat down with my therapist and I said, I think my sister is having suppressed memories coming up of my father molesting us. And I heard myself say it, and I couldn't even believe I had just said it. Because it was like I just knew. It was almost like a robotic child who had lived a life that she couldn't remember had just told this therapist exactly what was going on. And the therapist, thankfully, didn't say, well, that's really scary. You should go. I'm the wrong person. She looked at me and she's like, well, how does that make you feel? Well, it seems like a normal thing she would say. And I said, well, I feel like it's too much for my older sister to face this. There's a little level of healthy deniability. We already knew our childhood was a mess. Do we really need an extra helping? Like, we're good, you know? And her face showed me something that really changed the course of my journey. And that was no. There was this look of what a normal reaction should have been like to what I was actually saying, which is like, no, this is not healthy deniability. This is something that you deal with. This is something that you look at. And the next day, I came in for the second day and I was like, you know what? Like, I actually want to deal with this and I want to deal with it with you. So my husband was like, you know what? Let's put this on hold with us and let's let you dig into this. And I did EMDR. And I asked God, because she was a Christian therapist, and I said, God, I'm really freaked out by this, but I need you to show me like what I need to know. I don't want to remember what I don't need to remember. I only want to remember the truth, but I need you to help me. And I opened up the Bible. I was waiting for her to pull me in because she was talking to Rick at the time. And I read the scripture that said, everything that's been in darkness will be brought to light. And I was just like, whoa. And I walked into that session and I had this strength that didn't make sense because it wasn't my own. And God walked me through those memories and that stuff that was so dark. And the way that he carried me was like a little child. It's like the way you would talk your little child through a bully at school or something so scary. It was like he got down on his knees with me and he was like,
this is what you've been through, but we got this. And that's the only way I can describe what happened in that 4-hour session. But at the end of it, I thought I would feel devastated, but I was elated. I felt free. It was like this lie. And that's why, thank you, Molly, for singing that song, because there is no lie. He won't tear down to come after you.
That's right.
And the truth is that I could never believe that there was a Father in heaven who actually could love me if my earthly father did such a crap job at it. I couldn't believe that there was a person, a being, who actually cared about me enough to change the course of history, to come for me. And he would come for just me. And I was so blown away by that. And I didn't even know what to do with it. And it kind of sat there, you know? And little by little, over the months after that, I got stronger. I did more and more EMDR. I had like really solid memories, and I filed some police reports. It was really difficult. It's an icky process. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I felt like for the first time in my life, as disgusting and messy as it was, everything made sense. Mm-hmm. It made sense how Joe had come into my life. It made sense why I was quiet about it. It made sense why all these little pieces had come together. But what didn't make sense at the same time was the peace that I felt in the midst of that storm. Because I will tell you that in those storms, God had been holding back so much more. There were so many people who came in and out of my life and abused me, and those 2 men were not the only ones, because there was a target, right? It was like I had my arms outstretched without even knowing it. I was like a broken bird, and people were seeing that. But all along the way, God was directing my footsteps for me to come into fullness with him. And the day that it all really changed for me, the day that all these little pieces clicked, will always be the most special day of my life. Because it was May of this year when this girl invited me to come to Be Still for the first time. And as much as I had faced, and as much as I had handled it, and God had been so sovereign, like, I still wasn't ready to really surrender the Rachel control, the OCD, the I got this, don't worry, you can hold a little bit, but I'm going to take it back because I got it again. She wasn't ready until that night. Because when I came in and I heard your story, and I heard the song Crossroads, and it was talking about how you're coming to a crossroads, and I thought, you know what? You're right. Travelers don't have regrets, but I'm so weary. Like, my soul is too weary. Like, I cannot keep doing this. I have to try something different. I've gone to treatment. I've gone to therapy. I've talked to people. I've given it all. I've done positive affirmations and yoga, and I live in LA. I've tried so many, moments to heal, and nothing worked. Every stone I turned. Since I was 13, I've read 1,000 self-help books. I knew I was broken, and I was desperate to figure it out. But in that one night, when I decided to actually give it away, and I decided to pray and actually say, please, this is too big for me. I finally saw the missing piece in my story, and it was too dark for me to look at. So I actually need you to come in and do what only you can do. And when I tell you that he did it in the most beautiful way you can even possibly imagine. And literally a month later, I was leading to Be Still, which is hilarious because I did not see that coming. And I was like, first of all, I'm the messiest person here. Let's lead this. It was so laughable. And that was the first time I opened up, and it was a much smaller room than this, and we definitely weren't streaming. So it was next level. This is even more. But it was so insane, because what I thought was going to be a day about, for these women who were in LA, who were celebs and influencers who I work with, who I was terrified to say whatever, but at the same time it felt so right, because I was like, dude, I'm not making this up. I would not put my ego on the line if I didn't know for a freaking fact that this is actually so real. And it literally pulls you out of depression, it pulls you out of suicide, it pulls you out of trauma, it pulls you out of grief, out of loss. It literally transforms your life while you're going through it. It's almost like living 2 lives, because you're sitting there and you're like, God, I know that this is so hard, but I also really know that you're right there. And you keep winking at me. You keep showing up in all these beautiful places that literally I can't even explain. I don't have words. There aren't enough words. I try to talk about him, and I'm like, blah, 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 and I was like, what? I can't even hear you. But literally, that was June, and it was randomly on Father's Day, which was just so epic. It was the only day that worked for everybody. It was not random, obviously. And little by little, as that daddy wound was healing, I could say the word daddy, and I could feel all of these things, and I felt empowered. I confronted my father. I did all these different things. And I didn't know that the most beautiful thing was yet to come. And I was driving down the PCH with the ocean on my left with my husband. And I felt like I heard God say to me, "This is the song I feel for you." And of course, it's a country song, Georgia girl. It was the song Then by Brad Paisley. And right when I hear it, it was just saying how much I thought I loved you then. It kept talking about how he just keeps seeing you in these different moments and he just keeps loving you more. And then he said, then the song goes, "I can just see you with a baby on the way." And it was so touching to me because I'd always wanted to be a mom like my whole life. I didn't know, but in that moment I was actually already pregnant. And literally I'm due to the week a year after Be Still. And he had to do it this way. That's the only way he would do it. And so, like, in closing, I just hope that the one message in this, like, non-chronologically, like, all tangled, very oftentimes fractured sharing that I've done, I just hope that if the one thing you walk away with is that God will direct each and every one of your steps to bring you into fullness of him. Mm-hmm. Because while he would never want you to go through any pain, he would never ordain it that way. He cries with you. I've seen where he was in those moments with me. And he's been right in the zone, like in the floor with me, holding me. He has been in those zones. And that's exactly where he is for you and with you wherever you are. But the one thing you have to know is that God is doing little miracles. There were little miracles that got you here tonight. There are little miracles that will get you through your day tomorrow and on, just to help you live your life closeness to him and love with him. And so I just encourage you, and I want to take a moment really quick where we just take a breather and we close our eyes. And I want to do something that I think is so important. And that is where we sit here and we think about the one thing we want to surrender to God. And I don't mean a gift that comes back like a yo-yo. I mean something that we give to God that's just bigger than we are. And it doesn't have to be something crazy, but it can just be something that you struggle with. It can just be one thing. It can just be one small thing. But I just encourage you to think of that one thing that you want to surrender to him. And I want to lead you into a prayer. I don't know if you are already in a relationship with God or if you want to be closer to him or whatever it is, but I just want to give you a moment, if you want to just repeat after me. God, I give you my whole life. It has been so messy at times. I have felt so lost sometimes. But you have never left my side. And you have never led me to a place where I wasn't meant to be.
You have never led me to a place that I wasn't meant to be.
And God, I receive your love.
I receive your love.
I receive your healing, Lord.
I receive your healing.
And I surrender my life to you.
I surrender my life to you.
God, I make my life a living sacrifice to you.
God, I make my life a living sacrifice to you.
Jesus, we love you so much, Lord. We are so honored by what you have done, the way that you have surrendered your life, the way that you have loved us, the way that you have carried us, God, in the darkest seasons, Lord. And while sometimes we are in it and it feels like it's never going to end, God, thank you that you pull us through, Jesus. Thank you that you take us to new heights and new depths. And as we heal and we go deeper and it gets harder sometimes, God, I just ask you to show us the way to trust you in every moment, every day, no matter what comes, God, because we know that you are sovereign. We know that you love us more than anything else, that you are not the God that I had known from my childhood, Lord. You are a daddy to us. You love us so much, and you have been such a good father. You have been such a good father. You've always been faithful. You have never gone against us, God. You have run with us, Lord. You have led us, Jesus, and we are so honored to be able to sit in your presence. We're so honored to be able to live this life with you, the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. Yahweh, Yeshua, Father God. We are so honored. Thank you for your gift, Abba. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you, guys. Or ladies.